Now let's talk about making an offer with a client. You've done the consultation, you've gone through the questions, and now it's time to make that offer, to talk about how we might work together further. Okay, this was part of the pre-framing at the get-go. So now we're going to talk about making the offer. And before we do, let's talk about some common missteps that people are making during their consultation calls. The first one is that they end the call without offering, without making an offer. They end the call without offering how to work together. Like, they just assume, I guess, that people are going to let them know. They won't let you know. You have to make an offer. You have to get the words out of your mouth and then issue the invitation to that next step with you. Just like how you got them to the consultation, you've got to make the next step invitation to actually sign up and become a paying client. And I actually have some language here for you. So let's say that we've gotten to the very end of the call and we haven't talked about working together. Here's some language where you might bring it up. So try and practice this, see if you can get this out of your mouth. But I would say, so before we bring the call to a close, are you interested to know about how we might work together? This is me kind of dipping my toe in the water to see if somebody's interested in talking about it. Because frankly, if their answer is no, great, get them off the phone, move on, clear the field. When their answer is yes, now I've got some permission to lay out an offer for them. Now, a second common misstep here is the offer is overwhelming or confusing. Overwhelming means there's too many options given. It's convoluted. It's overwhelming to the person. So let's say that you have 10 different ways that people can work with you. When you have 10 different ways that people that can work with you, you cannot offer them all 10. And I'm going to talk about how many you actually offer them, but you've got to narrow it down for them. Okay? So, and when it's confusing, a lot of times is when people go, so what are some ways that I could work with you privately? And the person goes, well, it depends. If it depends is your answer, we need to have a private conversation about this. I'm going to encourage you to schedule a time to jump on the phone with me so we can talk through why you don't say it depends to your client and what do you say instead. You cannot say it depends when you're talking about your pricing or your offers. Even if there's a part of you that's pushing back right now and saying to yourself, well, but Nikki, it does depend. I get it. That cannot be what you lay out to your client. You have to be clear and concise in your communication to them on the offer so it's easy for them to move into saying yes to working with you. All right, here's the third mistake that people make during the consultation part of the offer is they hold back from actually inviting people to work with them because they don't think the person can afford to hire them. Salespeople and really people in general, we are so good at two things that really get in our way in life, but definitely in the selling process. We project our limiting beliefs onto other people. We make assumptions like, oh, they can't afford me. The other thing that we do is we think, I always say we hallucinate. We think that we can read people's minds. We think we know what they're thinking. And when you show up and you don't make an offer because you assume that the person can't afford to work with you, they feel that in some way. And it doesn't usually feel to them like you think they can't afford you. It more comes across that they think you don't want to work with them or you don't think they're your type of client. And of course, none of those are true. So be really careful. Even if there's a part of you that's thinking like, well, they can't afford me, you still have to make the offer. You're not doing yourself or them any good if you don't get the offer out of your mouth. All right? So let's talk about what to do instead. This is crucial. So remember, step one here is that you're the expert. You've heard me say this a few times throughout this module, and I really want you to stand in that place of power. And when you're making the offer to work with them, you recommend what you know they need. You recommend what you know they need. You pick the 3 options you're going to give them, which is step 2 here. You give up to 3 options. So even if you have 10 different ways that people can work with you, Based on the questions that you've asked them, this all roads where you're like really narrowing things down, you should have a good idea of what up to three options are a good fit for this client, and that's what you recommend. Now, if they have questions or if they want to talk about another option after you've laid out the three, that's fine. But only give up to three, because otherwise you get into this overwhelming and confusing people. And then they get into this mode of like, well, I better think about it. We don't want them having to think about it. We want to be really clear and make it easy for them. And then step 3 here is that you start at the most expensive and you work your way down. This is what's known as top-down selling. I cover this in detail in the pricing module. So if you want some more background about top-down selling, that's where you can find it. But I'm going to give you just a brief kind of explanation about it so you know. Top-down selling is when you give a range. And in this particular case, you start at the bottom of the price range, you go to what the top of those three options, if there are three, the top of the price range, and then you start explaining what they get for the most expensive, and then you work your way down. That's top-down selling. So for instance, if somebody said, what are some ways that people could work with you? I might say, well, there are 3 main ways that people work with me. They start and they have to ask me about pricing and what do you charge for those? So if they don't ask me about pricing, I might lay out the 3 options in the top down, and I might not give pricing until they actually ask for it. But let's say they say, what are ways that people can work with you, and what do you charge for that? I'm going to say there are 3 main ways that people can work with me, and those ways start at $97 and they go all the way up to $5,000. Now at $5,000, here's what this person would receive, and then I'm going to walk them through it, and then I'm going to give the middle range. At $2,000, it's this. At $97, it's this. Okay, so give the range, start at the top, work your way back down. If you start at the bottom and try to work your way up, they're probably always going to pick the least expensive option on the way to work with you. So people don't like to have things taken away. That's why you start at the top. All right, so I actually have some language here of how I might lay this out to a client for an offer, and I just want to talk through it quickly so that you see how I would do it. So let's say that I've said, are you interested in finding out some ways that we might work together? And the client says, yes, tell me about those. And let's say in this particular case, there are 2 ways that I might work with this client. I might say, there are 2 main ways that we could work together. Just notice by saying main ways, it kind of implies that there might be others, but I'm just going to say there are 2 main ways that we could work together. First, there's the VIP program, which starts with, and then I outline the VIP program and I say what they're going to get in the VIP program. And then I also say, now the second option is a self-study course, and it's an online course. And I might say a little bit more about it. And then I would say, this is a key phrase for you, by the way, based on those 2 options, which feels like the best fit for you right now? And then I wait. I am not allowed to speak until the client speaks first. So if you've laid out 3 options, or if you've laid out 1 option, or you've laid out 2 options, this is your closing language. So based on those 2 options, which feels like the best fit for you right now? Now I want you to practice. So this is your assignment from this section. I want you to practice giving your client options. What are 3 of your most popular ways for clients to hire you, or 3 of your most popular products, whatever fits your application, and practice laying them out and do the top-down selling. And you got to do it every time unless the client says they're not interested. Now, I mentioned before, a lot of times I don't give pricing until the clients ask for it. I do list pricing on my website, and I, again, teach a whole module around pricing, so I have some strong opinions about this. I don't just like blurt out my pricing. I wait for clients to ask for it. And if they ask for it, I absolutely have an answer. You will not hear me say it depends to a client on my pricing, even though sometimes it does depend, but I'm still going to give an answer. All right, good luck with this section. Practice making your offers, get really clear, and this really should only take a minute, 2, maybe 5 at the very most during that 30-minute consultation call. If you're taking more time than that, you're probably either boring or you're coming off as salesy to your client. So 1 to 5 minutes max to lay out your offer. Good luck.